Hello, this is Lila. Additionally, I once thought that family meant protection, warmth, and unconditional love, until I become 30 when I was instructed to go by my parents and given packed luggage. Not a warning, no thank you, no farewell. A simple directive. You've outlived your usefulness. I'll give you some background. I've spent my whole life in a little quiet Ohio town. In this town, rumors spread faster in the church bulletin than on Facebook, and secrets quietly deteriorate behind white gates. Graham and Denise, my parents, always presented themselves as the classic, industrious kind. They were known for their American flags on the porch, home-cooked dinners, and Sunday service. However, inside the home, the focus was always on control, and I was unaware of how firmly they had me in their grasp for years. I returned home after graduation with the intention of staying for a year. 2, perhaps. Help them out and save some money. Denise had reduced her hours at the cafe. Their mortgage was past due, and Graham found himself between jobs. That is, drinking in the garage. So I took the initiative. I helped renovate the house, paid half the bills, paid for the internet, and worked full-time at a non-profit. When their credit card obligations began to choke them, I even gave them a portion of my income. I initially assured myself it was only temporary. However, months turned into years, and I remained there, surviving, repairing, and paying. They never expressed gratitude. They never inquired about my well-being. And gradually, I began to feel more like a utility than a daughter. I held on to hope. Nevertheless, I hoped they would notice me if I continued to assist. Thank you. They did notice me, it turns out, but not as their daughter. Instead, they saw me as a valuable asset, a device, interchangeable. Throw it away. My 30th birthday was the night everything fell apart. The sun had barely set over the ridge when I parked in the driveway. That early autumn nip that creeps under the collar of your garment was in the air. On the passenger seat, I had a little cake box from the corner store that cost $20 and was vanilla with red frosting. I didn't anticipate a card or even a celebration. It had been years since I had had one. However, I had the idea that we may go out to supper. For a night they might pretend. As usual, the lights in the kitchen buzzed. Meatloaf, canned green beans, and boxed mashed potatoes were already on the table for dinner. Graham sat with a half-empty whiskey glass at the head of the table, quietly. Denise fidgeted with her fork. Without barely glancing up, Graham said, "You're late." The plastic bag crinkled too loudly in the quiet as I set the cake on the counter. I worked late. I needed to complete a few reports. Nobody said the words "Happy Birthday." Nobody even raised their eyes. After removing my coat and hanging it on the hook, I sat down. There was silence during dinner, plates being scraped by knives. The sound of glasses clinking fills the room. Don't laugh. No warmth. All that could be heard were the robotic noises of a household operating as if nothing were amiss. Graham then smashed his fork down in the middle of his dish. Like a gunshot, the sound shattered the kitchen. He remarked, "You're too old to be freeloading," as he leaned back and fixed me with his gaze, as if I were a repulsive fetus. "Time for you to go." The room went cold. I blinked once, twice. This must have been a joke. Was it a drunken bluff? Denise, however, remained silent. Denise didn't even glance at me. She just kept her gaze fixed on her dish. I said, "I pay the electric bill, internet, groceries. Please consider reducing the mortgage by half." Graham gave a snort. "Princess, paying a few bills does not grant you a lifetime stay." Princess was a lovely word once. He would proudly call me that when I was younger, and I would snuggle up in his lap with my scratched knees. It was a weapon now. I gave a nod. That was it. Don't cry, don't yell. Only a soft, "Got it." He grinned as if he had won a prize. Every step I took as I made my way upstairs creaked as if the house itself disapproved. The cake box was on the nightstand in my room. I stared at the cake box, one candle gone. The words "Happy Birthday" written in uneven letters. There's only one candle left. There is only one person involved. There are too many lies being told. I refrained from crying. I didn't cry just yet. I packed instead. The closet already had a half-full suitcase. Something inside of me had anticipated this. Everything fell into place as I walked around the space. Turn off autopay, move my savings, change the passwords. Please maintain the account for emergencies, as Denise requested. They hadn't just ejected me. They had taken advantage of me, and they wanted me gone now that I was useless. With my hands neatly folded over my bag, I took a seat on the bed. The dusty mirror reflected my image back to me. It had the same green eyes and brown hair. But something had changed. I felt as though a thread had broken inside my chest and could not be reattached. I grabbed the cake. I pushed it off the nightstand after that. With a gentle thump, it hit the aged carpet, leaving icing behind "Lila, Happy Birthday." Due to a long-standing habit, and I went downstairs with my phone in hand and my feet quiet. Graham was lounging in his chair with a spooky blue glow cast across his face by the TV. Denise's eyes were hazy and far away as she perched on the edge of the couch. They appeared to be okay. It was as if nothing had happened. This Wednesday felt like any other. As he sipped his drink, Graham said, "When you leave, don't forget to turn off the lights. You no longer have to pay for them." That was the end of it. This is the final nail. I refrained from screaming, didn't weep. I simply turned around and returned to the upper level. Let's go back to the room. I never had. I didn't simply pack this time. I had a plan. Additionally, when the sun rose above Ridgeway, they would be well aware of its meaning. To lose the one thing that kept their fractured, small world whole. The bag had already been zipped when I returned to my room. I neatly folded my coat on top of the bag. It contained all I would need for the next few days, just enough to escape, vanish, and breathe. However, I needed to sever all connections before I could leave. I retrieved my laptop from beneath the bed, opened it, and signed in. Was there a bill for electricity? My name, Watermine, Internet. Everything is beneath me. The identical accounts that they thoughtlessly utilized each and every day. The cancel button on the utilities portal was positioned directly under the pointer. For a brief moment, my finger trembled. Click. Electricity is no longer available. The water has disappeared. There is no longer any gas. Each click was a laceration, not retaliation. All they did was quietly reclaim what they had taken for granted. The combined bank account followed. I transferred every dime I had into a secret account I had formed months earlier. A contingency plan I never wanted to use, but always thought I could need the one Denise had me keep open for emergencies lost tidy. At the auto insurance I stopped. My coverage included both of their vehicles. I believed I was doing the right thing by keeping them there to save money. Now, though, I saw it for what it truly was now. Take the car out. Take the car out. Click, click, Netflix canceled. Amazon Prime lost. By the time I finished, it felt like I had surgically removed myself from a house that had gorged me for years. Anger was no longer the issue. It has to do with equilibrium. A late-night sitcom's laugh track reverberated through the floors downstairs. I pictured Denise drinking her wine and Graham moaning at the TV. They had no idea that their world was about to fall apart. Did they want me to leave? All right. However, they would at last understand what it was like to lose the daughter who sacrificed their comfort. I took out a legal pad from a drawer. I began to list all of the things I had canceled. I proceeded to list each item individually, line by line. Evidence. Not only for them, for me, I needed to see a lifetime of expenses, favors, and unspoken sacrifices Clearly, I didn't go on birthday excursions. I worked overtime. While Graham complained about incompetent contractors, I took care of the repairs. The memory of Denise calling me from the side of the road with 2 flat tires came to mind. I paid for the tow truck, purchased her a brand new set, and missed work. After giving me a hand pat, she gave me the receipt. She said, "You're a good girl." She believed that was adequate recompense. We experienced a leak in our roof during the winter. While Graham sat on the couch watching football, he yelled, "You missed a spot!" I clambered up in the rain and pounded shingles. I was never seen by them, just what I was capable of. I noticed them now, though. I had completed my task. I climbed into bed next to my bag. The cake was still on the floor, shattered. The scent of rot and sugar filled the room. I made no effort to tidy things up. Leave it there. Like everything else in this house, let it decay. I switched off my laptop at 2:00 a.m. The plan was to deactivate all accounts by morning. Graham tried to make coffee in the microwave tomorrow, but it didn't work. The internet disappeared as Denise opened her laptop. Nothing would happen when they switched on the lights, and they would understand. I was more than simply their daughter. I served as their cornerstone, and without considering that the entire house would collapse with me, they ripped me out. I didn't get any sleep that evening. The chamber seemed heavier than I had ever recalled, and it was chilly and hollow. I listened to the wind rattling the gutters outside, while I continued to stare at the shattered ceiling. At the foot of my bed, my bag was half-packed and open like a wound. The cake I had purchased myself was still lying on the floor like some pitiful metaphor with its icing smashed into the carpet. I wasn't okay, but I also wasn't going to weep. There is a type of mourning that is calm and does not include crying or yelling. It just whispers, "You were never enough," while remaining still and sharp in your chest. And for a brief moment, I believed that to be true. With my phone in hand, I sat on the bed and watched the battery drain. I refrained from making any phone calls. Don't text. Nobody inquired about my well-being. My parents showed no concern for my well-being. They were very explicit about that. The knowledge that, perhaps just possibly, they never did, however, was what further twisted the knife. I was downstairs by daylight, as quiet as a shadow. They were either sleepy or feigning it. I didn't care either way. Like any other morning, I prepared coffee. But instead of using my broken cup to sit down, I reached for my laptop. As I pulled up the utility accounts, gas, water, internet, and electricity, the screen shone sterilely and softly. The utility accounts were all in my name, connected to my bank. Missed birthdays, late-night overtime, and years of payments were all necessary to keep this stupid mansion going. They also expelled me. Cancel, cancel, cancel. I felt as though I was severing an unseen umbilical cord with every click, one that they had clung to out of entitlement rather than love. The bank account followed. Vera requested that I leave the joint one open for emergencies. I transferred all of the money into a secret account I had set up months prior. A silent gesture of self-preservation for which I was now incredibly thankful. With a tense but stable chest, I gazed at the confirmation screen. The move was not retaliation. It was a matter of survival. I'm alive. The lights were still on, and the Wi-Fi was still buzzing at 7 a.m. It would take time for them to feel the effects. But I anticipated it. I was at Nora's that night. The only person who ever truly saw me was my friend Nora. In 5 minutes, her little apartment, cluttered with mismatched mugs and houseplants, felt more like home than my parents' house had. In 25 years, she handed me a cup of tea and remarked, "You look like someone just canceled Christmas, exhausted and weary after acting all day." I gave her a half smile. "They're not sure yet. However, when they do, it will be noisy." Curling her legs under her on the couch, she nodded. "Allow them to scream. You are entitled to rescue yourself." I also wanted to think she was real. I didn't have to wait long, though. My phone was buzzing nonstop the next morning. The phone did not return any of the 15 calls. I didn't know the numbers of my dad, my mom, or anyone else. I didn't answer. I was unable to. Their names flickered like warning lights, and I just looked at the computer. The voicemail followed. "Sweetheart, there must be some mistake," my mother said in a delicate, breathy voice. "That wasn't how we meant it. Give me a call, please. The situation is something we can resolve. We share a common bond, family that term." That is a falsehood. Cullen texted me immediately after saying, "You'll regret abandoning your family. Don't apologize, no recognition." There's a sense of danger, but also a hint of entitlement. I flipped my phone face down and put it on silent. Nora and I strolled to the corner shop later that day. While I strolled the aisles numb and floating, she chose inexpensive wine and sweets. My phone buzzed once more at the register. "Tyler. My cousin, Dad told Mom to fake chest pains, is all that is said." My breathing stopped. They had no intention of making amends. All they were doing was playing me like a puppet. As usual. After we returned, I slipped my phone beneath a cushion and cuddled up on Nora's couch, knees to my chest. I spent hours in that state. Then I lost it, not too loudly. This should not be done in a way that ignites flames, but with concentration. I took out a folder I had been holding onto for years after opening my laptop. Evidence receipts, screenshots. I paid all of the bills. I responded to every message my parents sent, asking for help. They simply forgot that I resolved every emergency I got to work, gathering at bank records, emails from the landlord, utility records. It was not a post of small-time retaliation. It was a chronology. It served as a chronicle of my life. Upon uploading a Reddit thread with the heading, "My parents kicked me out after I paid their bills for 10 years. I'm done staying silent," I had no idea it would become viral. However it did, the comments came pouring in from people with similar life experiences, others who showed compassion, affirmation, and support. The neighbors interjected. I even received a letter from my former English teacher. The actual repercussions followed. Cullen attempted to return to the internet. A pitiful post on miscommunications inside the family and how daughters lie to gain sympathy. It was unsuccessful, no more. "Funny how she was paying all your bills, huh?" someone said. "Didn't see you complaining when she kept the lights on," said another. The tide had shifted. Additionally, they were no longer able to swim in it. Nora poured us wine in mismatched cups and gave me a toast that evening. "To be honest," she said. "For survival," I said. And I felt as though I may not be broken for the first time in years, only bruised. Perhaps this was the beginning of something genuine. The morning after I posted the receipts was eerily quiet, as if the air was retaining its breath. My phone buzzed in short, irate spurts as Nora and I sat at her little kitchen table, and the scent of burned toast wafted between us. I didn't look at it. I haven't looked at it yet. I didn't have to. It would convey information that I already knew. The message had spread well beyond the Facebook group for our little community by 10 a.m. Local forums and even a few localized subreddits were sharing screenshots. My neighbors weren't the only ones responding anymore. Commenters from different states said things such as, "This reminds me of what my aunt did to her daughter," and "You deserve so much better." I felt a split in my chest as I shook my fingers and browsed through them. Not sorrow, not regret, something cozier. Verification. Naturally, the reaction followed shortly after. Less than an hour later, Cullen wrote an angry follow-up on social media. "Don't believe everything you read online. My daughter is mentally unstable. She's twisting things." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. As our 78-year-old neighbor, Mrs. Lawson, replied just beneath his remark, "I saw her shovel your driveway every winter since she was 13 while you drank beer on the porch. Maybe don't throw stones in glass houses." Culo. Mrs. Lawson used to bring me handmade candy every Christmas. In only a few minutes, that post received over 300 likes. Then everything started to fall apart. Those who had remained silent began to speak up. They included neighbors, pest educators, and friends' acquaintances. They each related a story that reflected mine. I remember when she missed prom because she had to work overtime to help her mom with medical bills. Saw her patching that roof in the rain last spring while her dad yelled about lazy contractors. Vera once informed me that Lily needed to co-sign the car loan due to their inability to secure approval. Their story was no longer credible. With so many facts weighing heavily on you, it was no longer plausible. They continued to fight, nevertheless. 2 days later, someone knocked on Nora's apartment door. Not upset, the volume was not excessively loud. Put simply, it was official. Someone handed over a manila envelope. A lawsuit. My father filed a lawsuit against me. The fees, financial desertion, elder abuse on an emotional level. Theft. The air poured out of my lungs for a moment. I was horrified by the blatant brutality of it, not because I was scared. I knew they had nothing to stand on. They weren't only denying their actions. They were attempting to discredit me for being honest. Nora was furious. They're using the courts like a tantrum. Don't give in. I didn't. I phoned Columbus. Legal assistants went over everything and sent along every bank statement, screenshot, email, and receipt. The paralegal who answered the phone seemed composed and assured. "You have a solid case," she stated. "We can help. Honestly, based on the evidence, it appears that you have a strong case. You could sue them for exploitation." I had no desire for vengeance. All I wanted was my life to return. However, the actual manipulation began at that point. Vera was the first to call her voice, shaking. "Honey, you're tearing this family apart. This isn't what we wanted. Your father's health. He's not well." I didn't respond. Then Cullen sent the text. The text was brief and sour. Family always gets the last word. That evening, I sat on the bedroom floor that Nora had lent me while clutching the small plastic cake topper from my 30th birthday. They never touched the cake yet. It was the same one. That was the same cake from the evening I was expelled. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who treats you like you matter, I said, as I flipped it over in my hand. I filed my lawsuit the next day. Emotional pressure, misuse of money. Recording each payment I paid off, every loan. I made all the necessary sacrifices. We met at the police station 2 weeks later. In a little gray room, sitting opposite me were Cullen and Vera, who were smaller than I had recalled, fragile and weary. An officer gently informed them that they could face abuse and defamation lawsuits if they continued with their bogus accusations. Cullen blew up. "This is a witch hunt. She's manipulating everyone." Vera cried. "I said nothing whatsoever. I didn't have to. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise," the officer remarked, glancing at me as they walked away. The sun was bright outside. Although the courthouse towered over me, it no longer seemed menacing. It was a sense of closure. I climbed into my vehicle, lowered the windows, and started driving. The past did not follow me this time. It realized it couldn't follow me as it watched me go. I had assumed that the storm was over, but trauma is difficult to forget. I had to deal with the most ridiculous escalation yet. 2 days after my message became viral in Ridgeview's small-town internet environment. There was a soft, polite knock on Nora's apartment door. Too courteous. Before I opened it, my stomach fell. Standing there with a manila packet in his hand like a bunch of snakes was a uniformed cop. He said, "Miss Lana Burke." With a parched throat, I nodded. "You've been served civil suit. Contact details inside." Like a puppet with its strings cut, I sat on the couch and shut the door behind me. My brain nearly failed to grasp the words. When I opened the package, my father Carl had filed a lawsuit against me. Financial abandonment, emotional elder abuse, and theft were among the charges. If it hadn't been so violent, it would have been hilarious. The episode was no longer only damage control. It was war, with her lips pushed into a bloodless line. Nora read the newspaper alongside me. She continued, "They're trying to destroy you," in a calm, quiet voice. I looked at the documents and nodded. I didn't weep for the first time in years. I remained calm. I had a plan. I had contacted the Columbus Legal Assistance Office around midday. I told them everything. I provided them with the accounts under my name, the mortgage payments, the receipts, and the medical expenses I had covered. After reviewing my file, the paralegal paused and very cautiously added, "Miss Burke, it sounds like you're the one with grounds for a suit, not them." I had no desire for vengeance. Peace was what I wanted. However, ladies like me were not granted peace. It needed to be delineated by legal files, borders, and receipts. I thus made an official complaint. They were subjected to financial abuse and emotional manipulation. They were going to receive a courtroom if they so desired. That afternoon, Vera gave a call. Her tone was shaky, hovering between well-honed shame and phony sadness. "You're tearing this family apart," she murmured. "We only wanted what was best for you. Carl's heart's not good. He hasn't eaten in days." I said nothing whatsoever. Carl texted me 1 hour later. "You think you won. Family always has the final say." He was mistaken. The truth does. 2 days later, I was standing in the Ridgeview police station in a dingy cinder-block room. On a shabby table across from me sat Carl and Vera, clutching her pocketbook as if it were her dignity. Vera appeared to be a ghost in a burial garment. Carl's eyes contracted to slits and his cheeks flushed. With my evidence stack on the table, an officer went over the repercussions of filing false charges. The charges included deception, slander, and financial mismanagement. Carl blew up and hit the table with his fist. "This is a witch hunt. She's manipulating everyone." No one answered. Wet and loud. Vera wept. She received no consolation. I didn't wince, didn't turn away, didn't offer an apology. The sun was brighter outside than I had anticipated. The promise of a fall breeze stroked my cheek. The leaves that had already given in to the season crunched under my boots. The weight of 30 years lifted flake by flake with each step away from that edifice. I looked through apartment listings back at Nora's one listing, caught my attention. The apartment located above a downtown flower shop captivated me. Uneven cabinets, squeaky floorboards, and midday sunshine dripping onto hardwood. I appreciated what I had, even if it wasn't much. That night, I signed the lease. The weeks that followed were hazy used furnishings. A kettle from the thrift store caught my eye. I enjoyed a chipped blue cup since it seemed to have a backstory. I applied a gentle shade of green, the color of tranquility, on the walls. I discovered it one day while unloading that terrible cake topper made of plastic. The topper was cheaply made and twisted. It was a reminder of the day I was banished. Anticipating agony, I twisted it in my hand. Rather, I experienced strength. I put it on a shelf as a trophy for myself. This trophy is not a symbol of victory, of surviving. A card was left under my door later that week. There was no return address provided, no signature. A single sentence written neatly by hand: "You are never the problem." Some people fear those whom they cannot control. Nobody ever identified the sender. Perhaps I didn't have to. I now knew who I was. I am not a daughter, defined by utility. She is not a scapegoat. This is not intended to serve as an emotional punching bag, emergency fund, or source of free therapy. My name was Lana Burke, a woman survivor. She is the creator of her own unique tranquility. And I said the words I had been searching for 30 years, for the first time in my life. I am enough. I appreciate you listening. If you've read this far, I don't post this to garner pity. but perhaps it will let someone who is also bearing unseen burdens realize they're not insane. You're not by yourself, and leaving is sometimes the best course of action. Have you ever had to put yourself above your loved ones? Tell me your tale, please. Remain resilient. Remain loyal. What they did to you is not who you are.